This episode is proudly supported by OpenTable.
Nearly 1/3 of diners are booking same day. So they're making those decisions on the spot. And 10% are making their bookings within just a few hours. And so it's why it's so important to have booking software like OpenTable, which allows your diners to discover you. And so when restaurants are on platforms like OpenTable, they're much more likely to be discovered. We help diners to connect to restaurants. Ultimately, having technology, using technology, helps you to reattach to those diners.
Experience the power of OpenTable. For an exclusive offer, visit restaurant.opentable.com.au/DITW.
So I grew up in the hospitality industry. I never wanted to do anything else, actually. I never thought of doing anything else. And I love the diversity, the creativity, and the opportunities it creates.
It's a cafe, it's a provision store, but most of all, it's a smokehouse. By Kai is a unique offering in Sydney's Surry Hills, run by chef Kai Ellmann and his wife Pawitra, a passionate Thai cook. They combine all their influences to create a very Australian business. Kai, welcome to Dirty Linen.
Hi, Dani. Good to talk to you.
Oh, it's so great to have you on the show, and I love what I know about By Kai. When I read about it, I feel like I can smell the smoke and almost taste the trout. Not quite, but tell me about your business.
Well, we are an artisan smokehouse, and we specialize in smoked rainbow trout. But we also do small batch smoked meats. We do a duck breast. We do the smoked duck confit. We do some smoked beef pastrami, some herb chicken breast as well. But the trout is really the hero product. That's how it all started.
Well, tell me about how it started and tell me about this special trout. How do you do it? Why trout? Where does it come from?
So it's the story started with Pawitra, my wife, and she had a small market stall. And the thing is that where she comes from, the northeast of Thailand, which is right on the border of Laos, it's just across the Mekong River. And so she comes from that area. And if you remember the Vietnamese War, a lot of the Vietnamese and also Lan people escaped across the river to Thailand and obviously brought with them their food culture. And so when you go to her hometown, there's huge influences of Vietnamese food, Lan food, and also some French influences because of the Vietnamese, of course. So when she started this market stall in Zetland at Green Square Markets about 6 years ago, she wanted to do this salad that she knew from her hometown, which contains like beautiful oriental herbs, glass noodles, rice noodles, and homemade tamarind dressings. And also it had a smoky kind of grilled river fish, which they traditionally pack it in salt and they cook it on the rice field. So she said to me, could you make something like this? And I said, obviously, we don't really have a rice field here, but I can do what I know, and I can try to smoke you some trout. And that's how it started. So I smoked 3 trout every Friday on the balcony, on the barbecue for Saturday's market. So what happens next is that the salad became so popular and people really enjoyed the smoked trout. So people asked me, or asked Pawitra as well, where do you get the trout from? Where can we buy the trout? And obviously, it wasn't available anywhere else but just the market. So Pawitra said to me, well, why don't you bring the smoker to the market and smoke it at the market? So that's what I did. And it became sort of a bit of a destination. And people liked the smell, obviously, and the theater. And it became really popular. So next thing that happened was that the market, unfortunately, closed down. It shut down. And I didn't really mind it that much because, to be honest, to get up at 5 o'clock on a Saturday morning was not really my favorite thing to do. But it closed, and we said that's fine. But it didn't stop there. So people still kept calling me and messaging me and asking me where they could purchase the trout. So I would collect orders, and then once we had enough orders, I would smoke one batch at home and then just deliver it to them. But that sort of encouraged us to go the next step and possibly get a shop or a production kitchen, a little kitchen somewhere, and open a little smokehouse. So that's really how it started, and it took a while to get to this point. Obviously, with COVID slowing us down, but we finally opened in February last year.
Wow, that is such a great story. You just never know what twists and turns the road has for you, do you? It's just, fantastic. Kai, tell me about the trout that you use and the process by which you smoke it.
Yeah, so the trout, we source it from the Goulburn River, which it's really pristine, clear, cold water. Very clean, cold water, and it comes down from the Snowy Mountains. That's where we get the raw product from. And the incredible thing is it actually gets from pond to the smokehouse in less than 24 hours. So it travels overnight and gets to the Sydney Fish Market about 3-4 o'clock in the morning. We then pick it up and bring it to our smokehouse, where we then brine it in our own recipe. We use Australian kiln-dried sea salt. We add a little bit of juniper, and we brine it for 24 hours. So sourcing the trout is important. The most important thing is that obviously the trout lives in very clean water, and the other important thing is what they feed the fish. So we were very concerned about that, and the farm that we choose uses natural feed, and there's no artificial colorings or anything at all. So it's a very clean fish, and it's obviously sustainable because it's farmed. So that's a really nice fresh fish. When we get it, you can see it's less than 24 hours from the pond. So the thing is, once we brined it, we wash off the brine, and then we place a sprig of fresh rosemary in the cavity. So that does two things. It contributes to the overall flavor profile, but it also keeps the cavity slightly open. And that allows the smoke to travel through the cavity, and it results in a more even smokiness. So then we smoke it over hickory, and the hickory wood is actually Australian pecan wood. It's from a pecan nut farm. So obviously we want to use Australian products, but hickory is a Native American. So if we want to use Australian wood, we have to use the pecan wood. So it's obviously a food grade wood because obviously for the nuts as well. And the wood, when they cut the wood, they don't cut it with a chainsaw. The thing is that the chainsaw oil would contaminate the wood, and we certainly don't want chainsaw oil ending up on our smoked products. So the other detail we do is we hang them up we lay them down rather than hanging them up. And that's sort of gives us avoids moisture loss and maintains the maximum moisture for a beautiful texture. We then smoke the trout to our magic degree, and then we have them perfectly cooked. So that's very important as well, because obviously it's a very oily fish, and if you overcook them, they can go quite dry. So the end result is a medium, smoky, juicy, sweet and salty, beautiful textured smoked trout.
Yum! It sounds so good. I would eat that every day. Obviously, I mean, it's such an interesting pathway. You know, you had this demand for this trout, and you know, it caused you to expand into these premises. But tell me about the offering as it is at the moment, because you know, people come to eat as well as to buy trout.
Yeah, so we do have when we looked for a premises, it was quite difficult actually to find what we are looking for, and so when we finally found this location, it is a little bit hidden, but I was really looking for a production kitchen, a kitchen where I can set up my smokehouse. So we never really thought of having a retail shop or a cafe or anything like this. But when we found this location in Surry Hills, it just fell into place, and we really loved the location where it was. It's the right address for what we wanted to do. So the thing is that when with this shop, with this kitchen, it actually had a little shop front, but it's very tiny. And so we said, well, we have this little shop front, so we might as well use it. And how do we use it best? So we obviously retail all of our products out of the shop front, and as well as other artisan or like-minded people's products, and obviously that products that go with the trout as well. So that's our shopfront offering. Then we do have a little alfresco dining area, just an outdoor area, and a very small 4 seats inside as well. So we do have a menu that we offer using dishes that are made with our smoked trout, like, for example, our signature dish, Pawitra's very popular, beautiful Oriental salad. And we do make other things as well, like a smoked trout croquette. We have a smoked beef toasty as well. And everything we make here is homemade. So it's home with homemade pickles and that sort of thing. So that's the, and of course, these dishes are also available online and also available to take away. But we do also work on collaborating with chefs and restaurants. So we do have a wholesale base as well, and we do have a small customer base, which are beautiful restaurants around Sydney at this point in time, and they use our trout on their menu as entree or whatever they do with it, So yeah, that's what we do.
Kai, you've been cooking for a long time. I'd love to know the backstory. Can you tell us what inspired you to work in food in the first place and a bit about your journey as a chef?
Yeah, sure. Look, I think from as long as I can remember, my mum is a great cook, and both my parents always had hotels. So I grew up in the hospitality industry, and I never wanted to do anything else, actually. I never thought of doing anything else. And I love the diversity, the creativity, and the opportunities it creates. Certainly, when I was younger, I loved the prospect of learning another language and see other countries and experience different cuisines. So that's really where the love comes from a very, very early age, as far as I can remember, really.
And tell us where you grew up.
So I grew up in Germany, in a town called Hanover, in North Germany. And that's where I had also my training. But because of my parents having hotels, we did live in many different places through the years. So we lived, for example, in one place in Bavaria, which was right in the mountains. My parents had a beautiful hotel actually on top of the mountain. And I remember going to school by ski. That was the only way of transport. And then coming back the same way. You have to get the lift, the ski lift, to go up the mountain again. But of course, a great way to grow up as a kid. Yeah, so that's sort of where I come from.
And what about some of the jobs you've had along the way?
Yeah, so obviously I had my training in Germany. And then shortly after that, I, because I always wanted to travel and use that, gain more experience as a chef, I went to England, and I went to Scotland in particular, and I worked in a hotel called Gleneagles, which is quite famous for its golf.
Yeah, I've stayed there actually.
Oh, it's a beautiful place.
It's amazing.
Yeah, magnificent place, yeah.
I remember doing the falconry where you can... we have this big leather glove and a falcon will come and land on it and then go off and wheel around the sky.
Oh, wow. That would have been a little bit scary, wouldn't it be?
I don't know. I felt like somebody knew what was going on. But no, it was really fun.
It's a great place, that's for sure. Very different. Yes, and then I ventured down to London as well, and I worked in the Ritz in London for a while. And that's, for me, I think that was really the place where I really learned how to cook. So yes, having the foundation as having my training in Germany and getting the foundations, that's obviously very important. But the Ritz in London really, that's where 100% that's where I learned to cook. So that was a very interesting place because obviously it's just around the corner from where many of the royal family live. And they used to come quite often to the Ritz as well and have a lunch or a dinner or even a breakfast. And I remember many times cooking for for members of the royal family, and Princess Margaret, her favorite dish was scrambled egg and smoked salmon. So we cooked that for her many times. That was a great experience and a fantastic place to work at.
Wow. And was that a sort of an enormous brigade? Like I could just imagine, kitchen upon kitchen with continuous service. Was it that sort of that scale and the systems that you really were able to take onward?
Look, the system is obviously a classical French system, so it's a bit like boot camp 24/7. But the brigade itself wasn't really that big. So I think from memory it probably would have been maybe 40 to 50 chefs maximum. So not that huge because the actual hotel is not that big. But it's a very interesting kitchen because you must have heard of Auguste Escoffier, the chef that really wrote down the recipes and named them after something or someone. So he's like the godfather of classical French cuisine. He actually experimented in that kitchen. He was employed by the Ritz many years ago, of course, and he would work behind a curtain, and nobody would know what he was doing, and that's where he developed all these recipes. So it's a really famous kitchen and one that has a huge heritage.
So, Kai, what brought you to Australia?
I came to Australia because unfortunately my parents got divorced, and my dad met an Australian lady and moved to Australia, and I hadn't seen him for about 9 years, and I was actually born on my dad's birthday, and so I really needed to come to Australia to reconnect with him, and that was really important to me, and it took me a while because I had to finish my apprenticeship obviously, and then I went to England and did all those things. And then I really felt the need to reconnect with my dad and visit him. So I went to the Australian High Commission in London, and I asked them if I could have a working holiday visa. And they said no. They said you can't, because as a German passport holder, Australia had, at least in those times, I don't know if it's changed now, but there was no connection between Germany and Australia. So they wouldn't allow me to get a working holiday. So, and I said, what are the options? And they say, well, you can go on a holiday. We give you a visa for a holiday. And I said, I can't afford that. I can't, it's too far away, and I want to stay a bit longer, and I can't just go, that's impossible. So I said, is there any other option? They said, well, you can apply for permanent resident. And that's what I did. And it took me a year to get permanent residency. But that was once I had permanent residency, I didn't need to get a return ticket, and I was able to visit my dad.
That is a really interesting visa story. I've heard so many permutations of how hard it is to get to Australia and stay and work in Australia, but that is one I have not heard before. So that's, really interesting. So did you just come here and never leave? That's
correct. So my intention was actually not to stay. It was really to visit my dad and to talk to him, reconnect with him, celebrate another birthday together, and then I might go back again. I have no plans really. But, we live in a great country, and it's lots of opportunities. And once you start and you get to know the country, and I traveled the country a little bit, you have to fall in love with it. There's no doubt about that. And so your 1 year goes by, and then another year goes by, and you make friends and connections, and the next thing I know, it's home. There's no need to go back.
Wow. And Kai, I know that you've also worked as a food stylist. Can you tell us about that part of your career?
Yeah, absolutely. So I did actually have a stint working for what was then Australia's largest food company, and I worked for them as a development chef. So what happened, in these big corporations, there's always redundancies going around, and there was another round of those. And I was offered a different position, or I was offered a redundancy. And when I looked at the redundancy, with it came, of course, the money is one part, but with it came a career advisor. So I thought I would like to explore that option, and I took the redundancy. And I spoke to the career advisor, not knowing what I wanted to do at all. After the second meeting, he said to me, you should be a food stylist. And I said, really? And I said, how do I do that? And what do I have to do? So he sent me to a couple of small business seminars, and then I started promoting myself as a food stylist. And I've done this actually for 20 years. And I worked with probably most of the major food companies in Australia and probably around the world as well.
But, that's so interesting. What a perceptive careers counsellor to send you on a path there where you stayed for 20 years. Tell us, a lot of people would find that really interesting, that a chef could be a food stylist. Could you just explain what that work is like?
Well, it very much depends on the client. So if you... And also it has very much changed over the years. So when I first started, for example, there was a lot of trickery involved, and probably a lot of people looking to make the food really perfect. And of course, we don't look for that anymore. These days we want to have the food looking fresh, and we want to look at it a bit random, not perfectly arranged, that sort of thing. So it's just much more appetizing and much more appealing to the public, at least. So things have changed a lot over the years, and also depending who you work for, it can be quite creative. But on the other hand, if you're working for a big fast food company, for example, for their menu boards, there will be an art director, and you will be guided of how it should look, how the product should end up looking. And then, of course, with technology has changed a lot of things as well. Almost every image you see, it would have been retouched to some degree as well. So to make it even more perfect looking. Is
there a food that you really loved to style or hated to style, something that was really tricky to get right?
I don't hate any of them. I think they are all great to style, and they all have different challenges. But the most challenging or the most difficult is most likely when you see a pizza with a perfect cheese pull, that is not an easy thing to do.
I bet. Yeah, well, what's the secret? What do you do?
Well, I don't want to give away my secrets, but it's actually just trial and error, a lot of trial and error, and a lot of them. You need a lot of pizzas to get it right. But one thing is probably a good thing to do is if you cut the base before you put the cheese on and before you cook it. So then you don't cut through the cheese to get the slice out.
That is a very clever trick. Absolutely. I remember, I've done a few cookbooks, and before I did the first one, I felt like this world of food styling was such a mystery to me. And I got one of those books that I guess is, as you were saying, pretty old school. It had a lot of trickery in it, and it just felt like, there was so much mashed potato was being molded to be, to hold things up or to be other things. There was so much, sprays to make things glisten. And, then when in the end I did work with a food stylist, Caroline Valent, who's one of Australia's foremost food stylists. She's awesome. Like, everything was completely natural. The only thing we did was we put some marbles in a bowl of soup so that the lobster wouldn't sink. Yeah, that was the only thing. Everything else was just what you see is what you get, and it was just about making the food look delicious and as you say, like allowing things just to look real, which I think is in most, I guess definitely in cookbooks and most publishing, food is allowed to look real, but certainly with menu boards and some of those I guess packaging shots, can be quite stylized.
Yeah, absolutely, and social media has changed a lot as well. I mean, social media, is really shot just to be out there for a few seconds, really. So that's a very, very different process, and the amount of shots you can take per day for social media versus packaging is a huge difference. I mean, packaging, especially if it's a product that's in the freezer or out there in the supermarkets, it's out there for a long, long time. Where social media, you see it for 2 seconds and then you go to the next image, So it's a very different process.
Yeah, interesting. So do you do the styling for your own products now?
Yes, I do. We put it on our Instagram, obviously. And yes, I do style them, yes.
Do you think trout's a pretty good food to style?
Look, it's very simple to style because I don't need to do much to it. It's just the way it is, and we just garnish it up, or maybe give people an idea of what they could do with it, or give some recipe suggestions, that sort of thing. But it's a very simple thing to style. We don't add anything to it. It is what it is, really.
And Kai, what are the joys and challenges with your business at the moment?
Oh, look, I think challenges, we all face the same challenges in small business. I think for me, the main challenge is probably we are in a bit of a hidden location, and so we're not on a major highway or major road, or where we are very visible. So we are a little bit hidden, and also the product we offer, it's quite unique, and it's a niche market product. So it's probably that's the challenges I face, and really letting people know what the process is and why is it so different from the brands you could purchase in a supermarket, for example. So these are the things we keep talking about, as who we are and why we do what we do, and it's a challenge, of course.
A real education process. But what do you love about what you do?
Oh, look, the joys are definitely the comments and the support we get from our customers, and certainly the locals. It's a great community, and they keep coming back. And as you know from the market as well, they kept coming back and they kept messaging me. So it's that support that's what keeps us going, and that is very satisfying, very, very satisfying. And that's all because we have just great customers.
Well, it must be something to do with the great product. Kai, what's your favourite way to eat smoked trout?
For me, when I go back in time and think about where I come from, actually it's really simple. It's just the smoked trout, some horseradish cream, and usually it's not the horseradish cream you buy in the supermarket. It's like a beautiful horseradish or a freshly grated horseradish, and then just add some creme fraiche to it, or even some whipped cream, and just some beautiful bread. That's it. It doesn't need anything else.
That sounds so good. Kai, it's been fantastic to chat to you, learn more about your business by Kai, and you've made me really hanker after smoked trout, so I've got to make sure that some of that is in my near future.
Well, please pop in if you're in the neighborhood. You must come in and say hello.
Definitely. I will see you there soon.
Thank you, Dani. Great to talk to you.
This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta @dirtylinen podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.